Well. Welcome to another episode of Miss G's Ladies Lounge. It is another magnificent Monday, and we are here Monday, ready to get started once again with our show. And I hope that you have had a great weekend. Listen, I don't know if you're over here in the East Coast with us here in VA. It was a hot day. When I came out of work, my car said 102 degrees. Okay? Yeah, it's hot. But right now, we are doing just fine up here in the air conditioned spaces. So we're getting ready to just share on tonight this great session that we have. We have a great guest joining us on tonight. So stick around. Like, tag, share, let your friends know that we are live. Make sure that you invite someone else to join this show. This will be a show that you would want to share. So let me just tell you a little bit about myself. Miss G, Gwen, that's me. I'm here and I am a visionary startup coach, book author, and coach. I am a writing coach as well. Some people don't necessarily want to write a book, but they just want to, work on some writing things. So I can assist others with those tasks as well. I am a speaker and I just love sharing the platform with other beautiful women who have, great stories to share. So whatever platform I have that I can do that, I love sharing that with them. So on tonight, we have a wonderful guest who has come to join us, and I met her back in November of 2025 at a conference, and we have been able to follow each other and connect. And she was supposed to come on the show just before the holidays, and things just, things happen, right? Life happens for us. And so she was unable to join us at this time. But guess what? She's here today. And so we want to take the time to just welcome our guest today. We have Miss Debra Daniels. She is a really passionate grief counselor. She loves sharing ways to work through your grief, and she has a beautiful business. And I don't want to say it wrong, but I believe it's the Garden of Grief Healing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just bring her in and she can tell you more about herself than I can. So let's just bring her on into the lounge. You know how we do here. We're a little bit informal because we just love having a good time, right? So let's bring in our guest, Miss Debra Daniels, coming and joining us right here in the lounge. Hey, how you doing today? Well, I'm trying to get her in here. You hold on one second. I don't know. These computers are playing games today, but we here, right? Hello, how are you, Miss Deborah?
Hi, Gwen. Thank you for having me this evening. I'm doing well.
Awesome. And actually, I think, isn't it Reverend Deborah Daniels?
It actually is. I am ordained clergy as well as certified grief counselor. This all started as a ministry, and it still is a ministry. I believe it's going to always be a ministry. However, God has reminded me, in some spaces you have to have like your business set up to be able to navigate through
Mhm.
some places and be at certain tables. So grateful to
Right.
have been able to found Garden of Grief Healing, where I get to do some amazing work to be able to walk alongside. those who are going through the process.
Yeah, that is awesome. And I love the name, the Garden of Grief Healing. You know, when you think of a garden, you think of not, but also peace, a peaceful place. And so I love that you have put that name together so well. When you've got the healing on there. So, tell us how you came about, what inspired you to go ahead and create this Grief Healing Center.
Absolutely. So
Your
back
sound went out.
in I was it
Okay.
was 2013. Oh no. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yes.
Are you okay? Back in 2013, I lost both my parents. Well, in 2013, I lost one parent, my dad, and in 2014, 3 months later, I lost my mom. So you can imagine the grief experience. Those were my first significant losses. Actually, I had lost a brother back in two. Let me see. It was in 1990. I lost my first brother. But the
Mm,
parents, that grief, or the grief associated with it, that loss was just very overwhelming. I mean, kind of unexpected. And so, navigating through the process, here you have parents, and now you have no parents. Now you feel orphaned, right?
mm,
And so I was in
right.
seminary back in 2016. I was a student at the Samuel DeWitt Proctor School of Theology
Mm,
in Richmond, Virginia Union University. And when it was time
mm-hmm,
for me to prepare my capstone, I didn't know what topic I was going to write about. What did God want me to do going forward um, post seminary? And I remember night I
mm,
was just sitting there, and grief just dropped in my spirit.
mm.
And so here we
Wow.
are, about probably about 4 years later, and this is
Mm,
what I got. So it didn't start right away. Like I said, I was going to start it as a ministry, or it was a ministry. But I realized there was so much more that encompassed, encompass grief. It's just not, there
right.
are different terms, there's different types of grief, things of that nature. So I decided, after actually speaking to my mentor, decided to take courses with the American Institute of Healthcare
Mm,
Professionals. I was able to become certified under the Association of Grief Counselors. Was able to become certified under them, and so I've been with them for about 4 years now. I'm certified through them. Again, this work, changed from being finance and now to doing this type of work. Never saw it coming. And I'm just so grateful that God chose me to do this. Of course, it's not a
yeah.
glamorous topic, but it's hard work,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
And so, even as
Right. Right.
clergy, you're able to serve and help those who are hurting.
Yeah. Wow. That is really impressive, to, as you said, not starting out there, but how God has orchestrated each step and brought you to this place that you're in. And you can see that it is a passion. It's not just something that you're just doing because you just all of a sudden chose it, but deep down inside, it's a passion, you know. And so that's awesome. I lost my father when I was about 11, and then my brother, I lost him when we were in our 30s, and so I do understand the grief, and then my mom, different people just started passing. It looked like everybody close just started passing away. One of my best friends and my grandmother. One year I had about 11 people that were close to me or related to me, pass in that 1 year span, and it was a lot. It was like funeral after funeral, but one of the things that I understand is that everybody grieves differently. Everybody processes losses, because it's not always about death, but losses. Everybody processes those things differently. So, for those people who might be walking around through loss right now, how do you define grief actually? And why is it important to understand that grief is a natural part
Okay,
of the healing
absolutely.
process?
Thank you for asking. So, grief is, just as you said, it's a natural response to either a loss, whether it be a person or other losses that we have, through the life cycle, through divorce, through moving, becoming empty nesters, medical diagnosis, different things can cause to have the experience of grief, which in turn is the emotions, or I should say, are the emotion and feelings that you're going to experience
Mm,
as you try to adapt to this and change in your life. So it's important for people to
mm,
really understand that this thing is normal. As dark as it
mhm.
feels, as hard as it feels, as unique as it is to each individual, it's a topic that in our culture we don't typically like to talk about. This
Right.
is a normal response to something that no one can prepare you for. Nothing prepared us for what we're going to go through when we go through the grief process.
Wow. Yeah, it's a normal response. That's something to take in right there, you know, because now when you say it's a normal response,
Absolutely.
do you
Mhm.
feel like that normal response, again, is dependent on the individual? Because I've seen some people that they respond to grief in so many different ways, as we said earlier.
Actually,
Um, so, is it normal for a person who may be the most, quiet and settled person, to just really lose it all? Or, is that like what you consider a normal response?
so I would say normal would be whatever your response is, right? Because each person, there is no roadmap, there is no one way, there's no right or wrong way to grieve, right? So
Right.
there are some individuals who do experience what's called prolonged grief.
Okay.
Okay, so the loss happened, they've got to handle business,
Hmm.
are suppressing their emotions, their feelings, even though they're coming to the surface, but they're pressing them back down. Or maybe they're not having emotions, right? At that time,
Hmm.
they're not, because they're kind of like a gotta get done kind of person. And we're just going to move through this, whatever it is, we're going, this is a part of life and we got to go in, and
Hmm.
whatever it is that they're experiencing. But
Hmm.
down the road, and it may surface back up. It could also, their grief can come out in ways that are really not helpful to them, because of other issues, as far as it's more damaging to them because they didn't address or they didn't feel because pressed it. So when I say norm, it also depends on your relationship with the person.
Hmm.
Okay.
Right.
When you talk about parents, for the most part, most people have a decent relationship with their parents. So when their parents die, that's all they as
Right.
and so that I'll even say when my dad died first, but when my mom died 3 months later, it's like it was this big black hole and everything just dropped out through that hole and it was just a
Right.
big black space, right? And it was
Mm,
just so empty. And so, that was my norm, right? And then everything else that I would go through during that period, before God would say to me that you will no longer grieve your parents the way you're grieving them. And I believe, Gwen, that was because I was in very bad shape. I was
mm,
messed up. I look at pictures now and I see I didn't look healthy. I
mm.
was just still going through the different ebbs and flows associated
Right.
with grief. No one knew, my family didn't know how to address the emotions if and when I talked about them, things of that nature.
Mm,
But now that I know what I know, much to this, and again, there's no one right way or wrong way to do it. It's individual,
yeah.
what's unique to individual. That's what makes it normal.
Yeah. Yeah, we've got a little bit of a delay, so if you see me just sitting looking at you, it's because you finished and you're looking at me, and I'm waiting to finish hearing what you're saying to make sure I'm not over speaking the whatever is going on here. Usually I have a pretty good connection, but tonight it's just a little bit crazy. So, how do you know when grief is actually, affecting your
It's
emotional,
okay.
physical, and
I'm
spiritual
right here with
well-being?
you. Yes.
Yeah. How do you know when grief, begins to affect your emotional, physical, and spiritual well-being? And what are some healthy ways to begin processing that so that it is not damaging to you?
Okay. Thank you for asking. That's a very important question. So many times when you are going through the grief process and the emotional signs for most people, of course, is the sadness. Some people are angry. They can be angry at the deceased. They could be angry at themselves. They're just angry just because, right?
Mm,
Um, sometimes guilt is involved. Your anxiety is on an all-time high. There's loneliness, there's fatigue, feel helpless, just all the things that you can imagine that relate to your emotion. Think of it from a physical perspective. It's more of confusion, there's tightness in the chest. A lot of times you'll see people walking around with their shoulders up to their ears because you're just holding on, right? You can feel it in your stomach. You have always have like knots in your stomach. And if you have pre-existing health conditions, those can worsen and cause other issues, right? Inflammation, high pressure, things of that nature. So you can't see the grief, right?
mm,
Per se, what it's doing to you physically, but things are happening inside your body. And what I recommend to people is if you are having some things happening that aren't the norm or have pre-existing conditions, make sure you go see your primary care physician or a specialist to make sure you get those things. Because one thing I will tell you, grief will kill you, right? You can have a heart attack, you can have a stroke, you can have, other things that can happen because your is trying to process. It's not only your body, but your brain is orchestrating all of this, right? Right. And a lot of times people realize that the grief really comes from your brain is causing emotions and the physical and the and I would say even the spiritual, right? Because you have learned to have faith and you've learned to trust in God. And now all these things for some people are being challenged, right? And you get to decide God can handle it, whatever it is we're feeling, whether we feel, that how could this have happened, to us or to our person. Um, and so you get, sometimes people will pull away from their faith or their spirit, and sometimes it'll draw persons closer to God, right? So
Right.
it's different ways you can look at it. You can deal with it, so emotionally, you have to recognize that these things are happening, and you seek
Mm-hmm.
help, right? You either again you go to your primary care physician or you see a professional, a therapist or a counselor, so that you can talk
Mm-hmm.
about the things. If it's because you go to your primary care physician, they can sometimes address, they may prescribe medication to help you with
Right.
anxiety, but you really just putting a band-aid on it. You're not getting down to
Mm-hmm.
what is, of course we know it's the loss and the grief, but to help you to understand what it is you're going through so that you know what to do. What I tell also is kind of like if someone got a diagnosis, say for cancer. Well, first you find out what kind of cancer it is, right? You find out you have cancer.
Mm-hmm.
Find out what kind of cancer. Then you find out the possible then you get all
Right.
this information and knowledge of what you're gonna experience and how you can be helped. It's the same with grief,
Mm-hmm.
right? You having this thing go on, you need to understand what it is that's happening to you and what it is that you can do. You need to know that triggers are, you need to know that also stages of grief, right? And so when you
Mm-hmm.
know these things, it kind of helps you process it a little better, and it helps you strategize and come up with better cope, because each person again will go through it in their own way.
What they say, knowledge is power. So, and that applies to pretty much everything. If it's anything that you're going to go after, you need to have knowledge about it, right? You need to gain knowledge. If you don't, and that goes to looking to the professionals or looking to, the experienced in order to gain that knowledge and be empowered with that. So, what are some common misconceptions that people have about grief? And what do you wish
Right.
that more people understood about the journey?
Mhm. Absolutely. So some of the things I was thinking, um, one of the I will say there are at least four of them that I would like to share misconceptions just for the sake of time tonight. Of course, I could go on and on and on, but some of the top ones are when people. One of the misconceptions is you have to be strong. No, you don't. You don't have to be strong, because even when you are going through, right, it's a natural um response that you're going through. And yes, we know there are physical and spiritual challenges that come with it, but you don't have to be strong. You don't know what it's like to be weak, I mean, to be strong, unless you know what weakness is,
mm,
right? And we have to know that there are things that are going to happen in life that sometimes we don't have control and we won't be able to fix just on our own. We're going to need some help. So even when it comes to children, you hear this a lot. Someone recently who had lost a child, and they said to me, I have to be strong because, of everyone else. And I was like, no, ma'am, you don't have to be strong. This is the time that you come together as a village and you tell everybody it's going to be tough, it's going to be hard, but together we can do it. This should not be on the shoulders of one thing because you're the matriarch or you're the mom, right? Or you're the grandmother. It should be that together we're going to get through this. We're going to get the help that we need. Another misconception is that there's a time limit, that after the first, you should still not be, having these emotions and feelings about, your loss. You should be able to move on and go on to the next thing. That is a misconception. Grief does not have a timeline. Like going to the library and check out a book and you have to bring it back in 3 to 6 weeks. Grief takes as it takes. It could be 10 years later and you still will have those most feelings, maybe not as much as you've had them when the first occurred. However, you still will have them. And many times you'll hear people say that the grief lasts a lifetime. Well, it probably does, right? But it does get a little easier to, once you adjust and you have accepted, that the person isn't coming back and that you're ready to move on with life. So that's a misconception that, after first year, you should be okay. Sometimes, and I believe way back, they used to, you get, and even in some cultures, you only get a certain amount of time to kind of go through your period of mourning, which is different than grief, right? The mourning is on the outside. You see people wearing black. You see um, flag flown at mass, things like that. That's what's called mourning. Another misconception is that there's a right or wrong way, as I mentioned before, about how to navigate through the process. It is not. There is no two people that's going to go through, even in the same family, who have lost the same person, will not go through the grief process the same way. And the fourth one that I want to bring up is a misconception that children don't grieve.
wow.
Children grieve too. They are called the forgotten mourners. And, we think grief is the business of adults. Well, children do. They grieve as
Wow.
well. And we really need to pay attention to what children go through and also help that they need. We can't always fix it, right? Buying things, letting them hang out with their friend. There are other people try to, either protect them, or think that what they've done in the past to, help the child feel love, that's going to work when a parent has died or when a grandparent has died, when a sibling has died, and sometimes even when a pet has died. You have to address those things. Yep. So those are the misconceptions I would share.
This delay has really is really long. It's a long delay, but I wanted to hear everything you said, and so I love that last misconception talking about children and how people, really don't think about the grief that children endure. Um, and so, um, what words of encouragement would you offer to someone who feels like they're stuck in their grief? They're wondering if they'll ever be whole again. Um, and then tell us just a brief snippet of how you feel that people can, number one, identify that their child is grieving, and number two, assist them through that process. Just a quick overview because people, they got to pay for this service, right? It's not free. So just a brief overview.
It's okay. It's okay. Mhm. Right. Absolutely. I would say if someone is feeling stuck, right, the grief is so overwhelming. You don't know whether to go left. You don't know whether to go right because it can make you isolate, right? Um, it can make you just, of course, that is all a part of this process because happen. And although we know that we're gonna all experience loss and we're gonna all experience whether we want to call it grief or not, we'll go through the grief process one way or another, whether it's prolonged grief, normal grief, complicated grief, whatever grief experience you go through, there will be something that you will encounter. But if you become stuck, I highly recommend that you either join a support group. You have to first and foremost. Let me step back. Some individuals will have a support person, or they may have support persons, and you will know who your people are. Those are the people who are not only there and available for you, but sometimes individuals they have to keep talking about what happened. They need to tell their story. They need someone to listen to them without judgment, right? And they need to have someone to recognize when they are really living in a particular stage and they've stayed there a little too long, right? So what I would say is, empower yourself and reach out to either a support group. There are support groups out there specifically for certain loss. So there are a couple of groups that I know of for individual lost children. There are groups for individuals who have lost persons due to suicide. I myself, I monthly grief support group the second Tuesday of the month, and it's for anyone who has had a loss. So no matter who, even if you lost a pet, come on in and be in community with others who are going through the grief process. And again, you won't all go through it the same way. You'll hear all kinds of experiences that people are going through, triggers, challenging times. However, grief is universal, and so that's the one common thing we might as well just all together, right, and support one another. Something you may say can help someone else.
Right.
Also, you can reach out to a professional like myself, and and you can receive one uh, consultations, not consultations, I'm sorry, session. The consultation comes first to get to know more about your story and what it is you're going through. But you go through these sessions and to one-on-one talk to your professional to find out ways that you can navigate through this. One thing I didn't say, Gwen, that I think is very important is for people to know that you're not broken. There's nothing to be fixed.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing wrong with your brain. You are grieving. Okay. And like I said, there's nothing that prepares you for it. When it comes to children, what I would say is you have to look out for the signs because children, the trick thing with that is it depends on the age that they are, right? Because they develop differently, different age groups, right? Even children who are like years old may out, right? Because their security is gone, right? They know that their mom or dad, they may not know them as mom or dad, and they may mama or dad, but really knowing that mom and dad are like security. And when that security is gone, something is different. Children, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they may act like they're normal. It depends, a boy or a girl, right? They may act normal and still around friends, but deep down inside, they feel, still feel separated, even in the presence of friends. They feel different. The friends try to treat them the same, but there's something different that
Yeah.
they sometimes don't know how to express it.
Mm-hmm.
They will, children normally, even when they're grieving, sometimes they're more clumsier. They may have nightmares. They may have loss of appetite, and the most common thing they may act out. Right? They may act it out. They agree because they can't verbalize what it is that they're feeling. Right? So you really need to get your child in to see someone, or you um, take them to their primary care to make sure that they're not bedding, things of that nature. Not that the doctor can of a significant sibling. There's so much to it. I'm actually working on a certification for adolescents and children. And when I tell you all things that I've been learning over these past 2 years, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Just so much stuff that I don't even think about. Another thing, even children who are who are graduating, going off to college, children in foster care, children moving to a new state, leaving all their friends, they
Wow.
grieve. It's just not the
Yeah.
loss of a loved one. So
Yeah.
we have to pay attention. And again, the parents, the family needs to get help that they need so that they can, be able to move on at some point, and get a better understanding of what they're going through.
Wow. This I definitely did not want to interrupt. I'm sorry about that pop up. I was trying to bring it into the studio, but not really pop it up. But we'll talk about that in just a minute. But so much great information that you have shared, and we do hope and pray that individuals, that feel like they have um, any losses. I remember when I got divorced. I didn't do a whole, I did, cry because, your life is shifting. You know what I'm saying? But I didn't do like a whole lot. I'm crying for 6 months. It wasn't that. But I remember you said earlier, confusion. I started feeling so confused, like what is happening? What is going on? And so sometimes people don't realize, even during those type of processes, losing a job, losing all the things that you mentioned earlier. It's so many different things that can, I would use the word, set you off, off of your course, off of your balance. And you don't realize sometimes that you're grieving. And I will tell you this, that it took me years to come out of that moment of grief. And it wasn't, I mean, I loved, my ex while I was with him. I did not, um, it wasn't just, oh, I'm just married to this person. I really did love him. But what the problem for me was, now I felt rejection, the confusion, I felt the anger, I felt the
That's sad.
sadness, all those things, they come along with that. And then when that builds up on the inside of you, you don't even realize that you're actually grieving. And so, I love everything that you're saying here today, and I hope that others will take time to even just assess themselves. Sometimes we are so busy in our daily activities that we don't assess ourselves and see that we're still walking through grief. And it's okay. It's not that you shouldn't grieve, but sometimes you need to be more aware of what's going on so that you can grieve appropriately.
Mhm.
I always love to say that, grieve appropriately. A lot of people, they grieve, but not appropriately.
Right.
Yeah. So I thank you for joining us on today. Tell us how our audience can follow you. I'm
Well,
sorry I don't have it on my posts here, but tell us how they can follow you, and if you have social media, your website, whatever. I'll try to type it in real fast.
yeah, that's right. Mhm. Mhm. I like that. Mhm. Right. Thank you so much for the plug. Um, well, you can follow me my website. Let's start with that. The easiest. It's gghcs.com. So it's Garden of Grief Healing Counseling Service.com. So my Facebook page is Garden of Grief Healing. We have a Facebook page. We're also on Instagram, and you can go to me and send an email, and that's Garden of Grief Healing at gmail.com. Those are the ways that persons who are interested in my service. But the easiest way is to go to the site. You can also send me a message to the email through the website as well. And you can reach out to me. I do offer 1 hour free consultation, better assess, initially what's going on, even if I'm able to help you, or you may need, the help of, say, a therapist, someone who's more clinician. And so, because sometimes there are other deep things, traumas people didn't address. Now you have to grieve that, right? And so some things need to really be dealt with at the of the issue. And so we can have a conversation, 1 hour free consultation, and not just because it's mental health aware, but I do this throughout the year because I want people to get the help. I want you to even know that the help is available. So reach out to me. I would love to have a conversation with you.
Wow, thank you. Again, that delay, it's crazy, but I wanted to hear everything that you're saying. We did pop up the website there. And so I'm really appreciative of you coming and taking the time to be with me on today. And what I'm going to do, for those of you that, this was hard to watch because of all the transition, don't fear, don't fear. I am going to edit. I don't edit my show a lot, but I'm going to edit it and try to fix it up so that we can get it linked up and synced up so that the sound will go with, the stream as it's going forward. And maybe we'll also pop it up as a podcast, which I have been considering working on. So we might pop that up as a podcast. I used to do them a long time ago, but it might be time for that again. So listen, again, I thank you for joining me, and go to that website. It's right there, right there, right there. Go to that website and join Ms. Deborah. We thank you for joining us. Get the help that you need. There's nothing wrong with it. The stigma of society that we used to have is no longer here. People that you would be so surprised is going and getting help that they need, and you need to get some too. Even sometimes just to make sure you're okay. So go ahead and get the services that you need. Thank you, Miss Deborah. I appreciate you, and we'd love to see you back here again soon. Have a great evening. Thank you so much. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So I appreciate each and every one of you for being here with us on tonight. Again, I thank you for your patience, and I do apologize for all of the technical difficulties, but we're going to work that out and we'll fix it up before we send it out for good so that you can have a great copy of what was going on today. So listen, I wanted to share just one quick announcement with you before this session is over. Just make sure that you follow me, first of all, all of my streams. There's so many different streams that you can follow me on. You can follow me on Facebook and YouTube, all under the Miss G's Ladies Lounge VIP. When you go to YouTube, you have to put the @ at Miss G's Ladies Lounge VIP. And then you can also follow me on my coaching platform, which is VIP Coaching and Consulting. That's the letter N. And then you can follow us on Instagram at Miss G VIP Coaching Consultant. We had Instagram on again today, so that's why I kept looking over here, looking at those who were joining us on Instagram. So I'm excited about that. We also have LinkedIn. You can follow me under Gwen Finley. Or I think you can also put in Miss G's Ladies Lounge over there, and you can follow us. But I wanted to also tell you about a great upcoming venture that we are doing. If you remember last year, we started out doing an anthology. We had 8 plus myself, 9 great women who produced a great anthology, and we're still feeding off of that anthology. I went to speak at another church maybe the week before last, and women were still excited about that book, but it's time to do the next one. It's in my spirit, and I'm ready to roll, ready to roll. So I'm looking for just 8 to 12 women who are ready to share their stories. Even as we were talking on tonight, there are women who have gone through processes. Maybe you've gone through some grief. Maybe you've gone through some happy times or some good times. Maybe you've gone through some struggles trying to make things work in your life, and you want to share with others how God brought you through those situations and circumstances. I'm looking for 8 to 12 Christian women who are ready to share their stories with others and let others know what God has done and how He has opened the doors for you. This is a Christian women's project. That's right. We're looking to share the Word of God. And so I'm looking for those of you who are ready to share and join me in this process. And we're going to be talking more about this as we go forward. But as you saw, my little flyer popped up prematurely, but I will pop it up for you once again. We are excited about this, and so we want you to join us. The deadline to join is June the 10th. So you want to get busy with your application now for consideration. So go on over to my website, and you can actually just put in gwenfinley.org/anthology 26. And that will take you directly to the page where there is a link that you can start the process to getting hooked up with me so that we can have a brief call and talk about your desire to be in this anthology and how it lines up with what we are doing, how your story lines up, how our book lines up with your story, right? Because we want to be on the same page. So join me over there at gwenfinley.org/anthology 26. And let's just put together a quick call. It's going to be a quick call, and we're going to just talk about the basics, and we'll see if we're a match. And if we're a match, we're going for it. We're going forward, and we're going to make it happen. So, again, I would love to just connect with you. And if you just like to connect, you can also go over there at gwenfinley.org and just browse around. I've gotten some new things that I've put up over there on my website. So browse around, see what you like, and give me some feedback, send me some messages if you like. We love to hear from you. All right, so that's it for tonight, and I want to remind you that you are amazing. We're so excited to have you as a part of MsG's Ladies Lounge. Join us back here again for our next show. Now, next Monday is a holiday, and I actually have an announcement for the following show. So meet us on the first Monday in July, and we'll be talking more about this. But the first Monday in June. I'm already jumping to July. All right, so next Monday is a holiday, it's Memorial Day, so make sure that you stay safe, that you are aware, and that you keep praying. Keep praying and keep watching and trusting God. All right, I love you. I love you. I love you. Have a great night. Thank you.